han formado parte del equipo de Tijuana Innovadora como voluntarios. Ustedes ven nada más algunos de ellos, estos muchachos que están aquí a los lados de ustedes con las camisetas azul turquesa, pero hay muchos más allá atrás, en el área de pabellones, en la explanada, en talleres, en todos lados, y de verdad ha sido un trabajo increíble, y yo creo que en gran medida el motor de Tijuana Innovadora 2012 han sido ellos. Por favor, denles un muy fuerte aplauso. Y no me quiero quedar con las ganas de repetir la cifra que les dije hace rato. ¿Cuántas personas han entrado o cuántas entradas hemos registrado en Tijuana Innovadora durante estos 10 días de trabajo? 918,446 en esta segunda edición. Y estamos llegando al final de nuestra jornada. Más que un evento, un movimiento ciudadano a favor de Tijuana. Otra de las actividades alternas memorables de esta edición fue sin duda la primera batalla culinaria, donde se enfrentaron los mejores chefs de la región Tijuana y San Diego, pero también con invitados que viajaron desde España para participar en las actividades de arte culinario. 70 talleres, Innova Moda, arte urbano a cargo de Cardinal 5, en fin. Somos Tijuana Innovadora, una ciudad que convive con los líderes del mundo buscando la grandeza en un ambiente de creatividad y de paz. Y la última conferencia de Tijuana Innovadora 2012 se titula La creatividad y el desarrollo cultural de las ciudades. Para ello contamos con la presencia de Martin Krammer, diseñador y asesor de negocios. El señor Krammer es un inventor que trabaja como arquitecto, diseñador y asesor de negocios en Austria. Su rango de acción es muy amplio y, sin embargo, Krammer encuentra un hilo conductor para dar unidad e integrar áreas que parecen no estar asociadas. Es fundador de KMDCC, Krammer Martin Design Creative Communications, la consultora de negocios que creó en 2010 en su ciudad natal de Graz, en Austria. El señor Krammer le apasiona influenciar su entorno a través del diseño urbano y la arquitectura. Por si fuera poco, Krammer ha jugado un papel importante en el desarrollo de una línea de alimentos orgánicos lanzados al mercado bajo la línea Meiselmichel. Es maestro y curador. Cedo la palabra a nuestro conferencista, el señor Martin Krammer.
Hi. Thank you. So, good afternoon. I'm very excited to be here. It's even more exciting after my two speakers before me. I never had the chance of speaking at the same conference with a Nobel Prize winner and Paolo Antonelli, so I'm really happy to be here. And thank you all for coming. I start with a short introduction of what I do because it might be a little bit unusual. And I think you heard what I'm all doing, and it's quite a lot of things that I'm doing. And I start with to piss the architects a little bit off because I was an architect for 20 years, and I stopped being one. That has certain reasons. I built buildings for 20 years. I was here working in the United States. In California, I was working in Austria. And after 20 years, we kind of got bored, you know, with this so many buildings, so many clients. But I didn't only got bored, it was also, I was seeing that a lot of the stuff that I did was for a lot of rich people. And a lot of, I built one of the biggest banks in Austria, which later on went broke, not for the reason of our building, but you know the other circumstances that are these days influencing economy and things like that. So it was kind of a hard process to recognize there might be something more. Parallel to my architectural career, I was always involved in things like associations and doing work with voluntarily on other things, and so I kind of decided to consult people in these things and widening the view and broadening the view on any kind of project process. It could be architecture, it can be something else, it can be also a cultural process. And this is what I wanted to speak with you today, because I wanted to introduce you to a culture-influenced city development process. And a lot of the stuff that I'm doing has to do with where I'm coming from. I'm coming from a city which is located in the southeast of Austria. Who has ever been in Austria of you? So many, many, many. Who has been in Vienna? Many, many, many. Who has been in Salzburg? A little bit less. Who has been to Graz? 2! Wow, 3! Fantastic. So you see, it is not the most well-known city in Austria. So we don't have any Mozarts, we don't have any Habsburgs, we don't have any, big things to show like Salzburg. And we don't sell us too much, and it is kind of this weird corner of Europe where for 60 years there was the Iron Curtain. So 60 kilometers to the east there was the Iron Curtain, 40 kilometers to the south there was a country called Yugoslavia, which does not exist anymore. So you can imagine that this kind of a remote place. The city itself is not that big, the countryside is beautiful. Anyway, the interesting thing comes in, and the city is very old, I should not forget that. And I think I brought a picture. Oh yeah, this is the location. So here you can see it. So it's close to Trieste, Italy, close to the sea. It's in a 2-hour range from Zagreb, which is in Croatia, Vienna in Austria, and Ljubljana in Slovenia, just to let you know where that is. So for those of you who have not an imagination where that could be, that is important to know because 3 of those cities are European capitals. So big cities, although Ljubljana shares the same size as Graz, but they feel bigger, because they're a capital. Okay, so this is how it looks. As you can see, it's very old. It's 900 years old. We're going to have a celebration, I think, in 2 years of this old city. And what is important, that all this structure that you see is not only pretty beautiful, it's also a UNESCO World Heritage. UNESCO World Heritage, United Nations Education, Science, and Culture Organization located in Paris. You probably heard about that. There are probably lots of UNESCO World Heritage sites in Mexico too. But also the historic downtown of Graz is a World Heritage. This is important to know because it is a World Heritage not only because of the historic buildings. It is also, and it is written in this statement by UNESCO, it's also a World Heritage because of the combination of contemporary architecture, contemporary building, a livable downtown area, and the historic context. In order to, and I'm explaining this in this extended way because it explains what my point later on. It's important to know that in the 60s, Paolo Antonelli was already talking about the 70s, and in the 60s, there were lots of movements of changing everything. In the 60s, there were movements of tearing down the old city and make it car-like, where the car could go through. They wanted to build freeways through the historic city. And there was actually a movement of citizens that were against it. So they were resisting these ideas. They were saying, no, we don't want to have it teared down. We want to keep it, but at the same time, we want to still live in there. So meaning that we also want to have the right to change it. So certain instruments were developed, like a commission that oversees today the projects that are run in the city in terms of quality, and this is a very important term to know. The quality of the projects has to be negotiated every time whenever one project shows up. So this is a very important thing in this process. And there's another step, and the next step was in 2003, Graz got, it is a title actually, but it's actually a big project. 2003, Graz became European Capital of Culture. I don't know if you're familiar with this program. Every year, the European Union nominates 2 to 3 cities, or 1 to 3 cities, I'm right to say, to be the European Capital of Culture. And in 2003, Graz was lucky because it was the only city who received this title and also received all the money, which was good, which is we didn't have to share. So, and with that money and that emphasis on culture, it was actually a big process started before that. So lots of buildings, lots of changes in the city, lots of improvements, lots of things that are today still important were changed by this time. But then, after 2003, where lots of projects happened, like also temporary projects, and discussions, and what's the future of the city and so on. After 2003, it was like the big hangover, all the money was spent, city was basically broke. What are we going to do now, right? So we need to find something sustainable. And the thing that happened was, there were a lot of arguments and a lot of blaming, it's your fault, you spent all the money with culture, so on and so on and so on. What happened was that the city government, or some wise men and women in the city government said, well, we have to look at certain things that we're good at. And they commissioned a study which found out that a lot of the things, or a lot of the workforce that are in the city is dedicated to creative industries. Creative industries is a term that you probably have heard from Richard Florida this week when he was talking about his creative class idea. I haven't seen it, but I guess he was talking about it. And it comes out from this, from the 1990s idea and recognition of the economic and social meaning of creative industries. Creative industries, for those of you who are not familiar with, includes everything that is a creative process leading to an economic success, or not success, but to an economic process at least. So this could include architecture, design, graphic design, any kind of creative process. Even consulting is considered one of the creative processes in this amount. And they found out in the study that actually for a city the size of 300,000 inhabitants, which is, I think, 10% of the city here, is that right? So really small. $1.5 billion overturn every year was made through creative industries, which is the same size as the car industry. So they were like, oops, here we have a serious economic factor in our city, so why don't we start to take it serious? The difference between a big car factory and the creative industries field is that in the creative industries, there are thousands of small companies working, and probably it's just one, maybe it's two, maybe three people. They don't have different needs. They have different needs. They don't have the same needs as the car industry have. So in terms of subsidies, export, and all these. At the same time, the city is, as you can see, we have 40,000 students in the city, so this is even more than 10% of the population consists of students. 30% of the population consists of senior citizens, so you can imagine that every summer the city is basically empty because the students are gone and senior citizens are on the sea, so it leaves the city for us middle-aged people. So this was one thing, and we started a process with the recognition of these creative industries. We started a process, and I'm still proud of being part of this team that started the application process for the UNESCO Creative City Network. The UNESCO Creative City Network was founded in 2004 in order to recognize this fact that the creative industries, you might like the term or not, it is in the meanwhile established term, that the creative industries have a certain influence on the city, and creativity itself has a certain influence on the city. It's not only technology, it's not only the car, it's not only economics, it is creativity that changes cities and makes people like the cities more than they do without creativity. I want to talk with you about that a little bit later. I want to integrate you in this discussion, but to explain you what it is important to know that in order to get that, you need to have a cultural tradition in the contemporary and in the historic alike. We applied, there are 7 categories as a creative city, which is literature, music, media arts, gastronomy, did I forget one? Design, and we applied as a city of design. This is because we thought that we have a large and big tradition in architecture and design schools, so we have an infrastructure that we can show. And we want to integrate into this network because this is what a UNESCO Creative City Network is. It is a connection between cities. And I explain to you later what the motivation behind that is by UNESCO. At the same time, there's an economic paradigm change that the producing economy, as we know, is going slightly down, and a lot of the workforce is getting into something like creative industries. So where more people are actually working in this sector than in the classic industrial producing sector. It was really interesting. I had a discussion in last year, I think it was at UCLA, when somebody was saying where we had a discussion about the economic crisis, and I don't know how you feel about it, but somebody in the group was saying, he was American, and he said, we have to jumpstart production again. And I thought, this is a really American idea, you know, it's like this old industrial sector that still feels like, yeah, let's make steel, you know, let's make cars, everybody has to have a big car, you know. This is basically what they show. And I thought, well, this is not what we have in mind. We're actually talking about the opposite. Production, yes, but maybe we use our brains a little bit more and be creative and think about a little bit more what we produce in order to improve the life of our citizens, in order to improve the life of everybody on this planet. And I think what Paula Antonelli has shown you is actually the best proof that you can have what thinking can do to your products and to everything and to your cities especially. Okay, I included this especially because this is a building that was finished in 2003, and you can see the combination of old and new because this is a 19th century iron building, and it is more or less attacked by this, we call it the friendly alien, which is it is the Kunsthaus. Kunsthaus meaning it's not a museum, but it's an exhibition space for art. And it was realized, and it was only possible to realize because of the 2003 cultural capital money, plus the political will to really finalize it. It took over 200 years to come up with this project, to finalize it. Sometimes it's so complicated to make things happen. But what I wanted to show it is, and this is maybe understandable from this picture a little bit more, this is actually always considered one of the best examples of cultural city development. What you cannot see on the picture is that this is located in a former red light district, which is just 5 minutes from the main square. But it was always, there's a river in between, there's the main square, there's a river, and then there's the right side of the river, the right river bank. And this was always considered the bad area, always, for centuries. This building changed it within years, just 2 years after this. The whole area is full with little offices, little shops, people that are getting in. At the same time, and sometimes this happens, and this is a lot of the criticism about the change through creative industries on cities, what they do is they're gentrifying areas, right? So the rents are getting up, you know, they're coming richer people in areas, the rents are getting up. The poorer people have to get out. The area is gentrified. It happens a lot in places like New York, Los Angeles. You can see that in downtown Los Angeles, for example. Sorry. But this didn't happen here because the city was actually behind it with subsidy system to keep the poor people in. So this is very important to know. Okay. And this is a map that you see how the network is consisting of these UNESCO creative cities. In the meanwhile, there are 35 cities in there. The two that are missing on this map because it's a little bit older is Bogota and Beijing in different categories. But at the end, it's one big network. The motivation behind UNESCO, behind the idea to introduce that of UNESCO was that in 2050, 80% of the world population will live in cities. So there's got to be something where you have to do something on it. Okay, I now show you a little movie about the city of Graz. Sit back, relax, enjoy the music, enjoy the images, and I come back with the next step in 2 minutes. So thank you. Thank you for your applause. The next step I want to do in this, and I will be way over time, I already can see that. I want to do a little experiment with you. Because yesterday I came here, by the way, one thing that is important for you to know. Graz was appointed in February 2011. So we got the news from Paris that we're going to be entitled the City of Design, a member of the Creative City Network. And it was actually in Tijuana when I heard the news. I was here visiting Raul, and so there is a strong connection. And yeah, and yesterday I had the opportunity to drive around your city and to learn little bit more about your city, because what I want you to do, together with me, to think maybe a little bit of what this could mean for Tijuana. And what you're going to see now is a photo essay, more or less. I was driving around taking photos in your city, and more or less everything has this tiled creative space. So think about it. If there could be some creativity behind it, or what you could do with it. Could you change it? Can you? What would you Tijuana imagine to be? Can there be? It's necessary to change? Maybe it's not necessary. Maybe it's as fine as it is. Maybe there are some chances you don't even see. And I want to do that together with you. So maybe you have any questions, because I want to include you. We have 15 minutes to do that. We have some microphones here. They're prepared, so I think there are already people getting up there having questions. I listen to you, but probably not everybody else can hear you.
Which are the elements, thank you, which are the elements that we should be looking into here in San Diego and Tijuana to bring the attention and to be a city of design, to be recognized by the UNESCO? Do you have some steps that we have to follow? Can you share it with us?
Sure. Well, there are two sides of this. One is the official recognition of being a creative city and to be a member of the Creative City Network. The other one is the things you really do. The recognition does not help you in any way, whatever. It's just, you have a label then, which is good. It helps you a lot. You are a member of 35, probably, in a couple of years, even 100 cities around the globe, sharing experiences, sharing projects, sharing people, because you can actually, I have to say, after we got appointed, our designers, our creatives immediately got invitations from Shanghai, from Japan. Our schools get connected and stuff like this. So this is a big advantage. But that's on the side. There is, in order to get into this, you have to follow a process. The process is actually given by UNESCO. You have to explain why you want to join the network. What are the qualities of your city? Why you want to be in there? This is the most important question you have to answer. And what would you contribute to the others? This is another very, very important question that you have to answer. It's also it's not. You might notice that in this map you see the cities of design, and there are more. Maybe there's some cities of design that are even more recognized, like Barcelona or New York or London, as we heard from Paula. They're not part in the network. They probably would not care, it's the more minor cities. It's the ones that are really competing, you know, the ones that are really behind their stuff. They're really, really struggling to make their things better, which is actually a good chance because, you know, the ones that already have everything, they're not so eager to learn, not so eager to improve, not so eager to get also their economy going, you know? That's one of the important things with all this, that there is not only a cultural factor, the cultural factor is really strong, but at the same time, it always goes hand in hand with economics. Like micro-business, as you see here in this image. It's a very important issue, you know? How you maintain, help people get into business. Their creativity should sustain them, in a way. And this is one of the clues that is actually part of the real process. This is what makes a real creative city. If the creativity of the people, and this includes everybody, because, yeah, let me ask you another question. Who of you is creative? Wow, so many. Who is not creative? I don't believe you. Probably even with your toothbrush, you're creative. No, it's true. Creativity is something that is, I mean, it's hard to explain because it's just a blurry word. And creativity is used in so many conferences as it is innovation. You know, innovation is, this called it here is Innovadora. I know it's innovation. Sure, it is innovation. Everything is. I was in a lot of conferences. I declared there are three things, the no-go words of the future conferences are creativity, innovation, and Steve Jobs. So anyway, there's another.
I'd like to first ask you a question and then make a statement.
Sure.
Well, I'll do the inverse first. Tijuana is one of the very creative cities because it reinvents itself ever since it was born 132 some years ago. Due to circumstances, Tijuana has been reinventing itself and creating in different ways. But it's vibrant. It deserves the title of being a creative city. It is a creative city. And a city that invents the way of making the Caesar salad and painting a donkey as a zebra. Of course, all those are creative feats, but also we have incredible creative community in the visual arts, in the scenic arts, in the dancing scene, and the music scene. It's an absolutely creative city. And I don't know how conscious we are ourselves of how creative we are. But I think it should be known that how creative we are. And besides of having the recognition, I want to ask you the question is, what other advantage do we get by being recognized by UNESCO as a creative city?
Okay, that's a very good question and a very good statement, I have to say, because I totally agree with you. Even just after 2 days in the city, I totally agree with you that this is one of the most creative cities I've ever seen, really. Especially, and this is, I want to point out maybe it's just my personal view as an Austrian, you know, we always like to eat, you can tell it. I'm growing, especially here. All the tostadas and they take me to places, you know. Anyway, but you have a great city of food here.
Oh, yeah.
And it's really, really amazing what you do here. Baja Med?
Yeah, it's been recognized as the Baja Med,
okay.
Baja Med Mediterranean kitchen.
Okay. Great, great cuisine. Let me explain you about this benefit a little bit, maybe about the issue of food. Food is so easy because it's so easy to explain, because with food you don't have to communicate much, you can eat it, right? So that's a big, big advantage. Design, we noticed, is some kind of a little bit complicated, you know? It can be, you know, chic-y, and it can be that, and people sometimes don't understand it, but food everybody understands, right? When you look at food, not only at fancy restaurants, but when you look at food as something that is influencing your landscape in agriculture, that is influencing, you can design agriculture, you can design landscape. This is a very strong influence, and I think there's got to be a lot of work to do. When you look at it in a way how it is transported, that's another question. The way how regionalized it is produced, how it is cooked, how the knowledge is transferred from one generation to the other, from experts to non-experts, and so on and so on. So there's a whole chain of things that is actually evolving from something like a recognition. The recognition is maybe not even that important, you know, but it gives you a goal. It gives you a goal, and that goal is very important, because that goal, there is the application, this is one goal. And then there is to be part of a network to communicate with other cities that have the same interest, that have the same struggles, the same problems, that maybe even in other areas of the world. They may be Asian, they may be European, they may be African. It is a big development process. And that it integrates culture with a lot of knowledge, but also, and this is sometimes, you know, culture has a certain, culture, we just spend too much money on culture, so we reduce the budget. But it is an economic factor. And it helps a lot of people within these cities to sustain. This is the biggest benefit without or with the membership of a network. It just helps you. That's it. So any more questions? Yeah.
If I understand correctly, the plan for the Tijuana metropolis, we have a vision of being a digital city, as you are a creative city. In your experience, how that process of becoming a creative city was driven? I mean, was it by government, by businessmen, or by a combination? We're trying to put together a plan here, and we'd like to know how you did it.
You always need a combination of everything, you know? You cannot exclude anybody. And the key to that is participation. You need to communicate a lot of your ideas. So you actually start with a small group. We started, I think there were 2 people that started the idea. Then we grew to 5. Then we decided to go with the process, which had to include politics, because we needed some money in order to, you know, write that stuff and do all the things and research. At the moment, the so-called board that we have, because you gotta have a board, the board of advisors, I think we're 30 people now. And this is politics, this is administration, this is economics, people from the business area. This is just normal people, the man from the street, it's important, they're also participating. It's a struggle to have that. This is why I'm saying design is so complicated. Because we know how complicated it is. Do you design something and there's failure, you know? And whenever there's a failure, somebody's saying, the city of design, you know, they again did something wrong. Okay. But at the end, it brings it to a better understanding, right? So you have to include people. You have to include, the more people you include, the better the process is moderated. It's also very important to know that it's not always clear where things go, because politics have a certain interest, business has a certain interest. Sometimes this clashes, and they say, "Wow, we don't understand that." Some thought actually that we won a title. We didn't win a title. We just am a member of the network, which makes us proud. Okay, one more question.
Can a binational region be certified?
A region? No, it's about cities. It's clearly about cities. And it's not, we were discussing this for a while, and also with UNESCO, to extend the categories, because there's a lot of cities that are dealing with science, with big universities like Heidelberg, or they thought of actually, maybe there's a city of science. Maybe UNESCO, when they invented, they clearly want to address cities. Cities because when you look at the political hierarchies, it's sometimes difficult because, for example, in Scotland, the mayor of a city is nobody, he's like he has nothing to say, but still he's part of the group. But it's still addressing cities because the city governments are the ones that are really making the decisions on a local level, on the basic level, not the big strategic, budgets and the EU and all that. You can have that everywhere. On the local level, this is important. Getting to the people, giving them a better life, giving them the benefit of creativity and innovation. Okay. I tried to stop this presentation now because it's so sticky. Because I have another little movie left. Which is actually the official movie by UNESCO. And I wanted to show you this because it explains, it's also a little bit fancy, but I actually like it because it's the first time that UNESCO managed to do a movie. And yeah, enjoy. It's just 2 minutes.
Today, more than half of the world's population lives in cities. The rapid and complex urbanization process raises many consequences for our societies at the social, economic, environmental, and cultural levels. In response, cities are enhancing their creative and innovative entrepreneurial potential. Increasing use of social media and digital technologies boost cultural diversity, as well as build new bridges for global cooperation. In this context, cities are playing a vital role in harnessing creativity for socioeconomic development and dialogue within and between societies. Since 2004, UNESCO has been gathering cities to share experiences in 7 fields of creative industries: literature, film, music, crafts and folk art, design, media arts, and gastronomy. This global platform aims to give visibility to the city members and encourages them to establish international development partnerships in creative industries. Today, more than 30 cities from different continents have joined the UNESCO Creative Cities Network. The network is open to cities that wish to highlight their assets in the field of creative industries while sharing knowledge and practices across cultural clusters around the world. The growing momentum reflected by this global network confirms that cities have become key actors to promote cultural diversity and dialogue, as well as to create new opportunities for development through unique forms of partnerships.
So,
Thank you very much, Mr. Krammer, and we're going to ask Mr. Galicot and Mr. Gonzalez Luna to come to the stage. They have a little talking about appreciation on behalf of
well,
Tijuana Innovadora.
thank you for your attention. It's,
Gracias, Martin. Muchas gracias. Qué interesante, mientras ahorita sale Raúl y el equipo, qué interesante de la plática de Martin, que se me hace muy impresionante lo que la creatividad puede hacer. Es que nosotros como ciudadanos podemos tomar los espacios públicos de una manera mucho más fácil de lo que pensamos. Veíamos que en una foto, con una pintura, podemos nosotros retomar espacios de la ciudad, y eso es algo que queda muy claro de la presentación de Martin. It's so easy to get or recover some spaces from the city just by doing some creative stuff that sometimes is not that expensive or that complicated, you know, which is very, very nice. Let me give you the microphone to
Amigos, se acabó. Se acabó. Es increíble, hace unos cuantos días estaba el presidente de la República aquí y empezó, a mí se me hace que pasaron años, es como histórico, tantas cosas que han pasado. Hemos trabajado en Innova Moda, cuando ellos presentaron ahí una ciudad creativa y vimos los desfiles de modas, pues ya tenemos el nuestro, ¿no? Tuvimos meditaciones de yoga, tuvimos el timbre postal de Tijuana, tuvimos el billete de lotería que se hizo aquí, tuvimos la hora nacional, tuvimos el clúster de muebles, el mosaico, la batalla culinaria, la ensalada César, pedaleando para la grandeza, tuvimos a Cardinal 5 trabajando, tuvimos la ciudad que habla y ahora vamos a tener un rato para bailar, vamos a ir a bailar todos, ya no está lloviendo, vamos a tener, hicimos una campaña de pertenencia, yo soy tijuanense nacido en Chihuahua, pusimos banners en San Diego, hicimos las ruedas de prensa en San Diego y México, hicimos el evento de agentes de cambio, Jack Wiener, entre otras cosas, hizo esa escultura maravillosa que está allá afuera que se llama el histrión.
okay.
Que él donó además, 2,000 voluntarios. Tuvimos el plan estratégico metropolitano en que estamos participando con Humberto Jaramillo, que es el impulsor de este proyecto, y hemos tenido ideas de todo mundo, hemos tenido personajes como Norton, el arquitecto, como Richard Florida, mucha gente de primer nivel mundial, como los que han escuchado hoy. Tuvimos los talleres, 74 talleres para jóvenes, donde le estábamos buscando ideas y vocaciones, todos con calidad. Tuvimos más de 200 muchachos por taller. Tuvimos una serie de actividades artísticas. Saben que el Secud rompió récord de asistencia en la exhibición de Serrano. Tuvimos 4 cenas, tuvimos al Marqués de Griñón, tuvimos a Anand Mahindra, que la verdad es un personaje de novela oriental. Trabajamos con una serie de americanos que venían en la terraza binacional. Estuvimos convenciéndolos y diciéndoles que Tijuana les extiende una mano generosa de amistad, que debemos trabajar juntos. Tuvimos paneles y conferencias. Imagínense los periodistas de Tijuana, cuando les dimos todos los días de 6 a 10 conferencias de prensa con personajes de este calibre, como Steve Wozniak, entre otros, y quiero presumirles ahí está su firma. Tuvimos recorridos escolares a borbotones, lanzamos un satélite con los estudiantes que fue fantástico. Tuvimos un encuentro con las damas que hicieron el evento de cáncer de mama en el que luchamos. Hicimos el evento del The Best Place to Work y tantas experiencias maravillosas, pero no hubiera sido posible, y no es un rollo de esos así, sin gente tan cooperadora como los voluntarios y como todos los líderes de todos los grupos que nos ayudaron. Es una historia increíble. La verdad, todos los que lo estamos haciendo nos quedamos sorprendidos, impresionados de que hubiera salido 2 años de estar empujando esto. Amigos, con el señor Krammer terminamos. Acompáñenos a bailar, terminemos bien. Y bueno, pues Tijuana tiene chispa, ahora tiene un montón de ideas. Gente escuchó ideas de personajes de nivel mundial. Todo lo hicimos al mayor nivel del mundo. Trajimos a personajes del mayor nivel posible. ¿Por qué queremos establecer Tijuana hacia la grandeza? Creemos en la grandeza. Y muchas gracias a los asistentes. Y qué padre vivimos esta jornada, ¿no? Híjole. Que salga todo el equipo de atrás.
Vamos a pedirle,
todos los voluntarios.
vamos a pedir al señor José Galicot, al señor Martin Krammer, a Jaime González Luna que permanezcan en el escenario, y también llamamos a Miguel Velasco, al señor Jack Wiener, a Jorge Izquierdo, Raúl Cárdenas, Ana Martínez, Rudy Argote, Ana Martínez, Armando Álvarez, Flavio Olivieri, Humberto Jaramillo, Laura Araujo, Alejandra Santos, Enrique Jiménez, Paola Antonelli, Daniel Rubio, el arquitecto Rodolfo Argote y Rafael Pérez, que vengan a este escenario.
Es un pinochetazo.
Sure. Yeah, well, let me thank you all, and I want to thank you especially. You, you're the reason why I'm here. No, give it a big hand. These guys are organizing this. And give you a big hand because you have something in mind, and I just asked the question, what is next? Raúl, what is next?
Well, lo que creo que debe de seguir ahorita, en un momento que es un día para soñar lo que es Tijuana hacia el futuro, que es de lo que se trata el día de hoy, que es el cierre de Tijuana Innovadora, pues que sea el principio de algo. Y ese principio lo queremos mostrar con este mapa que están viendo aquí atrás, ¿no? En donde queremos ver cómo podemos hacer de Tijuana una ciudad creativa de la UNESCO, ¿verdad?
Y definitivamente este sueño lo tenemos que concretar para el año 2015. En el año 2015 Tijuana se convertirá en la próxima ciudad creativa galardonada por la UNESCO.
Y a bailar.
Exacto. Y ahora sí, todo mundo, ya tenemos listo el escenario allá afuera, ya está la orquesta en este momento tocando. En este momento se termina nuestra sesión de conferencias y en la sala de espectáculos concluimos las actividades, pero todavía nos queda fiesta, entonces los esperamos por favor en la glorieta a todos ustedes para que terminemos por bailar.
Mi director artístico me ordena que los llame al frente. Pásenle por favor.
Un anuncio solamente, en un par de semanas trataremos de tener un compendio de lo que fue el evento, además de todo lo que es el PEM, el Plan Estratégico Metropolitano, las revistas del día de hoy, los periódicos del día de hoy, en una cápsula del tiempo que será enterrada y abierta en 2034, como un testigo de lo que sucedió en este evento.
Muchas gracias a todos.
¡Órale! ¡Vámonos! ¡Vámonos!
Ha ha ha.